Hi, my name is Brandie Paterakis, and I'm the owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services. I'm a mother and wife who is passionate about life and has found joy in helping others improve their mental health. The goal of this podcast is not only to provide enriching entertainment, but to help others in their pathway to have a more fulfilling life. This in no way is a replacement for therapy. Follow us on this journey of mental health awareness. Blue Bee Counseling Services now presents this podcast, Therapist Table Talk. Thanks for tuning in to Therapist Table Talk. I am Brandie Paterakis. I'm an LCSW and owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services located in South Jordan, Utah. We are so excited today. We have two people with us today. Let's go ahead and start with Maddy. You guys all know Maddy. She's been on before. Maddy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Maddy Hobbs. I have an LCSW and I know Brandie because we worked together at some point. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, so exciting. And then we also have a newbie today. This is Cali, everyone. We're super excited to have Cali. Cali is one of our interns at Blue Bee. Yep. Cali, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an intern at Blue Bee. I'm a BSW intern right now. I'm going back to school and am really enjoying what I'm learning at Blue Bee. So.
Yeah, and hopes of a therapist degree someday.
Yep, LCSW one day.
One day. That's exciting.
One day. So
I remember being there.
Did you be there? We were there like when I was on a podcast with you. I was like, I'm almost there, remember? Mm-hmm. And we were like, we got to celebrate this because I got it. So
yes.
You'll get there.
Yes, we'll do a little celebrating. Woohoo!
Yes.
Kelly. Okay. Well, it's just super exciting. So the topic that we have decided on today is a topic for summertime, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it is getting warm outside, and it is nice because in the fall, I don't know about you guys, but in the fall, I just love it just a little bit more because I can like cover up with like cushions of fun stuff, like jackets and like hoodies and blankets,
the fireplace,
and and it's just like bigger, more cozier clothing is just super easy to wear.
Yeah.
But in summertime, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that. And so what happens is it starts triggering all of us women out there. And so what we would like to focus on today is something that is super important, which is a body image. And so we have come up with a bunch of, let's dive into the statistics here and see. Now some of these are from mightypursuit.com, but there's statistics all over the place. There's statistics on children, statistics on men, statistics on women, the ages of women. And so I just thought that it is so fascinating. Okay, so as a result, plastic surgery industry has now valued at $50 billion. The weight loss industry is at $72 billion, and personal care and beauty is at $558 billion. Wow. Sounds like we're in the wrong industry. Okay, just kidding.
We're in the right industry. It's just not an expensive industry.
Okay, so here is some other information. More than 50% of adults are reported experiencing weight stigma, which is kind of fascinating. They have weight bias, internalization, and weight management. And I thought that was fascinating. So 11% of women, 25% of men, and 18% of gender diverse Canadian adolescents reported clinical risk of muscle dysmorphia. Now, muscle dysmorphia is that feeling of having enough muscles on your body to be attractive and to look not weak, which I thought was fascinating. It's also a criteria in the DSM diagnosis, which is you can, what is that called? Like you can add it on
like
to
a specifier.
A specifier. Thank you.
Well, and I think that's so important to note is that men and women both have struggles. Like you're probably going to see more men struggling with the muscle dysmorphia than women, but I don't know. We'll have to look at the numbers. And you're definitely going to see probably more women with the body dysmorphic issues.
For sure.
So it's important to note that they're both having issues.
That is interesting. So it says adults who used anabolic steroids for body image purposes are 3 to 4 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety than those who don't use steroids. I thought that was kind of fascinating. Children and teenagers, research has shown that 50% of 13-year-old American girls, you guys, reported being unhappy with their body. 50%, 13-year-olds. They're too little. That is so sad. This number grew to nearly 80% by the time girls reached 17. So by 17, 80%, which is fascinating. And nearly 80% of teenage girls reported fears of becoming fat. Among adolescents who believed they weren't thin enough or might get too fat, 53% exhibited clinical symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder. That's 53%. So that kind of goes to show me that I should be checking this every time someone comes in my office. That is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel is true in a way. It always comes up in my sessions. And so that is something that is really fascinating. Okay, so 22% are terrified in Germany. There was 36% of German child adolescent girls that felt fat. 22% were terrified of gaining weight, and 36% reported regularly feeling upset about their weight or shape, which is fascinating.
So it shows that it's happening across the board too. It's not just in the U.S., it's other countries too.
Yes, this is so sad. Okay, so females, let's go into adult women. Nearly 1 in 2 adult women report feeling more concerned with the way they look during the pandemic lockdown. I just think that is low. I feel like everybody that came in and saw me feels a little bit concerned with the way that they look, which is super interesting. And so I hope not. I hope it's 1 and 2.
And not 2 and 2.
And not 2 and 2.
So I heard a statistic that I was looking up for this that said that it was like 86% of women have a hard time with what their body looks like, and that 92% have at least one thing that they don't like about their body.
Okay.
And that's huge.
Yeah, that is
so
huge.
I don't know if this has to do with the difference between having to do with something specific with the pandemic.
It sounds like it might be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That is interesting.
It would be nice if it was 1 and 2 instead of 86% though.
Yeah, because 86% is more like 1 3/4.
Yeah.
Okay, in U.S., adult women, 23% reported frequent body checking, and 11% reported body image avoidance.
And if you and I don't know, do you want to go into like what body checking might be? Because some people may not know.
Yeah.
So I'm not like an expert in it, but I had gone through my own journey with my nutritionist, and body checking is a huge thing for me, and I think for a lot of women. Like when you're looking in the mirror, like when you get out of the shower, or when you get into the shower, just checking for those areas that you feel really self-conscious about. Also, I think maybe you guys have seen this with clients too, but like body checking even when you're in social situations, like, oh, I need to sit a certain way because of how I feel about a certain part of my body, and just like really worrying about kind of how the others are seeing you. And so that's what body checking can look like.
I love it. Thank you for explaining that. And I think that we do this a lot when we're taking selfies. There's a certain way that we angle the phone to make us feel like or to make us look like we're thinner or to look better. And so for sure, that is something that I think we are being trained to do, and our children are watching us on how to do that.
Oh, yeah. That's how we learn it a lot of times, is how we grow up.
Exactly. Well, let's go into body image. Since we're here, let's talk about that. So body image refers to how we think and feel and act towards our body. It is a multifaceted concept, and it means that it consists of many different perceptual, attitudinal, and behavioral components. And so, sorry, I struggle all through that.
It's okay. It's a lot.
But it just means that there's just different ways to go about this. And so we could spend all day talking about all the different ways that we view our body and how people view their body and see their body. And we're going to probably dive into a few of those. But I think it's really important for us to talk about exactly some of the negative components that can come from having a little bit of that body dysmorphia or even like low self-image. What do you guys think? What are some things that kind of get in the way?
When we have bad body image?
Yeah.
I think definitely depression can be higher because we're having, and maybe you can refer to this because you were talking about the internal dialogue earlier, but just having that internal dialogue of like negative thoughts, that can definitely cause more depressive feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, it has a lot more to do with that internal dialogue, the way that we see our bodies, because it's not about how they look. Mm-hmm. It's about our perception of them, our attitude towards them. What are we saying? Those do we have self-compassion? Are we talking about our body in a way that is negative or positive inside? Because no matter what it looks on the outside, if we change the way our body looks, but the way we're talking or thinking about it is still the same, the image and our attitude about it is not going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that is a really good statement. There's so many negative outcomes that can come from body image. And so there's a list of them, some of them here. Depression and anxiety symptoms, risk of suicidal thoughts. We know those are true. Low self-esteem, interpersonal problems, alcohol and drug use and abuse, reduced physical activity, loss of a sex drive. I thought that was kind of interesting to place on there, but that is true. I've had that come into my office.
That makes sense.
Stress, social isolation, decreased motivation to seek help, professionalistic tendencies. So that perfectionistic. Sorry. Words today, you guys.
It's
words. Early. Perfection is an issue. I think that high expectations of trying to hit that mark that you feel like the world is putting on you, your friends are putting on you, your family's putting on you, and repetitive negative thoughts. You know, it is those intrusive thoughts that just come in is just so harmful and hurtful. I like to stop here for just a minute and explore a couple of things. Have you ever had some negative outcomes, or when you're thinking back on your childhood, where does weight stand as a big indicator of an issue? I can remember, and I grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, right? And so of course my parents are very interested, or very old school, in the fact of weight was a big, huge issue. And not that was a very important thing back then, or even I wish they would have known differently. And I think they do too.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But I remember laying on a blanket at a park, eating some chips, and, them looking at me and going, "Are you going to eat that whole bag?" The shame that's there. Or even me going to the doctor's office after just having a baby and then being "Well, you put on 15 pounds. And just the way they said it. And I was wow, the shame that and I don't think that they mean to shame us, but it just happens every time that we have to go and get weighed, and it's oh wow, there's a 15-minute, and you're was I not supposed to put on weight? And so then the next time I'm starving myself as a pregnant mom, trying not to gain weight because I might be shamed at a doctor's office because I put on 3 pounds when I have a baby growing in my stomach, right? And so those perpetual comments or those concepts around the stigma of what we should do or shouldn't do, and not to shame anybody in the healthcare professional or profession this time, but I think it's very important for us all be aware of how hurtful those comments can be, and if they need to be said, how to say them carefully, and how to have some a little bit of empathy and understanding in saying those, and so I love that how you talked a little bit about some of the society references that they make towards us, and how what is the concept that you talked about right before? It was about those things that people say, the stigma of what is being said that can cause us to do certain things. And so the outliers, I'm trying to think, I can't remember. You said it so well in the words when you were saying it, and you're let's talk about those, and I'm oh, I should write that down.
Maybe I'll totally remember. Did it have to do with the thoughts?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that. Okay. But anyway, those type of things of those things that get in the way that cause us to that have these certain belief system around what we need to do, because
yes, the myths.
The myths. Yes. Thank you. Okay. We got that.
Yes. So I was just saying how we grow up in different environments. Like you said, you grew up and there were comments made, and that probably is stuck with you. You obviously still remember that because I remember a reason. Because
I not eat a bag of chips no more.
You're probably eating chips and you're oh, I can't eat this whole bag of chips, even though maybe you want it or you're hungry. Anyway, so we grow up with different things, especially in our own household, and different myths about food. Like, for instance, some people grow up feeling like they have to finish their plate. Yes. And that's overeating, right? And it's okay to overeat sometimes. Like, it's totally okay with that. And it's okay to want to overeat sometimes. Yes. However, like, we don't want to make it a habit, right? Because then that's just not a healthy habit, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we feel like we have to finish our plate, and that's overeating. That's one thing we've been taught is, you need to finish what you're eating before you get dessert or whatever it may be. Also, sugar being bad. Like, and there's even, people out there that are in professional settings that, are like, oh, sugar's bad. Like, don't eat sugar. But sugar's not bad. It's just a matter of how you eat sugar and how much you eat sugar and being mindful about eating sugar. And so
mindfulness.
And so those myths of just like that we grow up with, that maybe you guys can just sit for a minute and think about, what do I think about food? Like, what is my relationship with food looking like, and how does that go back to my childhood? Because a lot of it does. Just like anything else, a lot of our childhood affects how we are.
I love that. That is so good. Yes. In fact, there's some concept. I mean, obviously, this is the biggest I have ever been. Let's just do some self-disclosure here.
Yeah.
This is the biggest I've ever been. And there's a part of me that goes back and be like, okay, I'm a therapist. Why? Let's get to the underlying root of what is kind of getting in the way for me and what is there. And I have found, you guys, I'm going to blow your mind for just a minute. This is super fascinating. I have found that the what that is causing me to like, and not that this is a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I love my body. Yeah. I am not ashamed of my body, but I am curious as to like, why this size now? And I have found that it's because I love events. I love big, huge parties, you guys. Like, and so every time, like, it's dinner time at night, I go to the place of, but wouldn't it be so much more fun to like go out to eat? Wouldn't that be so much more fun? And so then I don't have to clean up the dishes. And we should invite someone with us. We should call up those neighbors and those friends and go with them. Doesn't that sound like so much fun? And so I create these events and these parties. And not only have I done this to myself, but I've also trained my children to do it. It's like a constant place of celebration. And so now it's always like on the menu, since we're celebrating today, let's get whatever we want,
So, not being as mindful. Maybe.
Not be as mindful. It's like, but it's an event today because we're all going out to dinner.
Well, and I think it's important to have those celebrations. Like, I am the type that values meals. Like, I think meals are very important for our culture.
Yes.
Like, it's a celebration. It's a time, like, if you have kids, to sit down with your kids and ask about their day. Like, don't make that not important. That's, like, so important. And that can be, especially depending on your culture, that can be important. It sounds like you value like quality time and you value like celebration. And so that's where we have to be aware of like, okay, am I being mindful with this too, right?
Yeah. The awareness of like, okay, but wait a second, do I have to have every day a celebration? And that should be all in moderation as well.
Yes.
And so like, let's keep the celebration days to a celebration day. And it's okay to have some boring night meals.
Yeah.
You guys. Like lunch.
Or another type of celebration. Maybe not the meal is the celebration, but like watching a movie after. Or like there's other ways to celebrate.
Exactly. Exactly. So there you go. Full self-disclosure. You're welcome. Let's talk a little bit about vulnerability.
That'll be our next topic.
Vulnerability is so important.
Yes. True that.
Let's go into body dysmorphia. And so body dysmorphia is something that is really, that's actually part of the DSM-5. And so you can get actually diagnosed with body dysmorphia, and there's a lot of specifiers that can be attached to it as well. But it states on here, body dysmorphia is a body image disorder characterized by the obsessive idea that some aspect of one's own body part is profoundly flawed and hence warrants behaviors designed to hide or fix these perceived flaws. And so how do we allow that to like, when does it become something that is hurtful and something that we need to like definitely address according to like health issues? And when is it something that is like recognizable that no matter what size we are, we're never gonna really fully love 100% of ourselves if we look at our body the way that we're currently looking at it?
dysmorphia or just in general, like these obsessive things that we start thinking about, or the worries that we have, like where's that line? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Where's that line between this is something that I really need to look at because it might be causing distress in my life in one way or another? Is it obsessively, is it distracting from the other things that I'm doing in my life? Can I focus on the things that I need to? Are these things that are interfering with the things that I have to be doing, or in other healthy patterns that I know are good for me, but I can't quite get my mind off of? These are the things that I'm worried about. Are there fixations, or do I feel excessive guilt? Are there things that are, does it make me start to loathe the things or my body, or
that's good,
things like that? So those are some of the things that I think of are, maybe that's when we need to start looking at how am I addressing my needs? Am I overly obsessing over things? Is this distracting? Is this affecting my relationships even? And so I think those are things that we can kind of look at and ask ourselves questions and get curious about that.
I love that.
So
I love that. And it also gets to the point where it's like, we're not saying that we shouldn't ever lose weight, or if you ever think about losing weight, then you're, you're not loving your body, and that you're, a bad person or whatever. That's not the point at all. There's every point where I'm like, those clothes in my closet, if I gain 1 more pound, are not zipping up. And I do not have the money to go buy new pants, right? And so, like, there are points when we, have to be self-aware and then recognize and do it appropriately so that it doesn't attach on these hurtful behaviors that tend to really hurt us and take us down the pathway of body dysmorphia, wanting to lose weight or to stay a certain size because that makes you feel comfortable and you like that size that you are, is a very different topic than because you don't like the way you are other ways. This way it just might be better for you.
Yeah.
And you might find that you run faster and you can walk up those steps without being winded. And so that's because you want to do this, not necessarily because you don't love who you are and the size that you are.
Yeah, and I think that just says that, like, for 2 things. One, like, make sure you see a professional for sure if you need it. Because, like, sometimes this is so complicated. And either you need to see someone like a nutritionist or a therapist or both. Right. Just to kind of help you unravel these things and to feel better. And the other thing is that we talked about earlier was kind of, it's more about how you feel. Right? You were saying, like, oh, you can get up those steps, like, or oh, you can have endurance. Like, I think we really have to focus on it's more about how we feel in our health rather than how we look. Oh,
I love that. Yes. I think that is so important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like what you were saying a few minutes ago, that it's not, being healthy and wanting to be healthy is not wrong. It's a good and it's a positive thing. It shows that we care about ourselves, right? Yes. And so, I mean, I think that being concerned, paying attention, those are good things. It's when it starts to be detrimental and things that
like it's when
so
our
I
functioning.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
health is
when we're starting to get some of those signs, like the suicidal ideations, the never feeling good enough, the wanting to cover up or hide, the rejection of certain activities, because we don't feel like we're, pretty enough, smart enough, skinny enough, enough. And so all of those things I think are super helpful for us to be aware of.
Yeah.
And then we can go on to the pathway of really being, going on the pathway of being healthy and mindful.
Yeah.
Of this. Okay, so
sorry, you're fine.
A couple of things I wanted to dive into. There's a list of a couple of things that they wanted to specifically point out. And I am going to be shocked if any of our listeners or our viewers, thank you if you're watching us on YouTube, but if any of our viewers or listeners do not hit all of these points. These are some of the things that they say can be very detrimental to our body dysmorphia or even into the body image that we have. Advertising, so watching what is out on the market, those magazines, the way that they hold themselves and they look so skinny in that thing. And then I found out that they cut off of them too. They like skim those babies up. Like, I'm like, wouldn't that be nice? Skin that little waistline right there, and like add a little bit of excitement and happiness to our chin lines. Like, and then TV and movies, right? And so like TV and movies can be a huge thing that it causes some issues as well. Social media.
Yeah.
No.
It's a problem.
Social
What?
media. Never. No, not looking at our phones. TikTok? Never. Like, are you guys all shocked? As we're shocked? We're shocked. That's crazy. But there's always that piece of like looking at what everybody else has. Oh, they do this thing? Oh my gosh, I'm a bad person because I don't have a 24-piece skincare regimen every single day. You know what I mean? Like, like I am gonna look old and decrepit when I get into my hundreds. Like that's gonna be off.
I think that brings up a really good point because I hadn't thought about that before. Because we're talking about the image of our body, the shapes of our body, but I think it can go beyond that, like the quality of our skin.
Yes.
Like there are so many things that we could pick apart about ourselves.
Our
and
hair.
Be self-conscious about our hair. Like so
I was
many things.
very self-conscious of my hair today. Like,
and in different cultures, there can be
For
completely different issues that
Demands.
people see
Yeah.
and expectations that
Yes.
can really weigh on people in one way or another.
For real.
But yeah, I guess I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
To kind of expand that view of the different ways that we can have.
that is true. Leave it to social media to bring out the negative in all things.
Well, and also another thing on social media is diet trends. Like, I don't know if you guys ever see it, but like even when I'm not interested in the videos on TikTok, they still come up of like, this is the new diet, and this is how it's going for me in the day of my life doing this diet. And it's like, oh, should I be doing this diet? Oh, look at that person. Their body looks better than mine.
Yes.
So even diet trends, that's why social media is so hard because it just fast-paced so many different things that we're trying to catch up with. Like it's that when we didn't have social media back in the old days, we probably were a lot better as far as our mental health goes and as far as our body image goes because social media makes everything so accessible and it's trendy and we feel like, and we compare ourselves even when we don't realize we're comparing ourselves. So that's why it's so important when you're on social media, and we'll probably talk about this more, but just not having the pages that maybe we tend to be triggered by, like the people that have bodies that we wish we had and constantly remind us of those negative thoughts.
Ooh, that's good. So what you're saying is putting new people on our feed.
Yes.
That's
like normal people.
That's screwing up the algorithm.
Yeah.
That's playing some games there.
Take control.
Yeah, take control over.
Take back your social media page. Take back your algorithm.
We actually maybe should launch something like that. Take back your algorithm. Show them who's boss and what is mentally healthy instead of trying to push products or trying to do things by making us feel insecure and not good enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Let's write that down, Callie. New intern project 2.0. Another thing that they have on here was music.
Can I add something to social media really quick? Because I was thinking about how, before we had social media, we didn't see all of these things and our mental health was probably better. But I also think that we need to recognize that a lot of social media brings in our awareness of the things that we can do better at. Because when we were growing up, there were things that our parents said that they didn't know were harmful, and we can't put it on them.
Right.
But we were receiving messages that we didn't realize were actually really harmful, and that were creating those problems that we still deal with today.
Yeah.
Because of what we had internalized and then built upon.
Yeah.
And what we believe about ourselves today. And so using social media, like you said, including and messing with that algorithm and adding in those positive thoughts and ways that we can kind of unlearn what we had learned in the past because we didn't know better. So,
I love
those
this.
are ways that...
So I guess it depends on like how we take action, right? Because there's pros and cons is what I think we're all saying is there's pros of social media where it helps us be aware of those things. And so we can go and get help. But that's where we have to take that action to realize that that's happening and to go and get help. And then there's the cons where we need to add in that other stuff and unfollow some of the stuff that we have because it's just not helpful.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the reasons why we're kind of getting out of those patterns that have been so prevalent in the past, that
Yeah.
that it was okay to comment on people's bodies, that it was okay to base people, that because when we look at people, like one of the things that we do, when we're learning and we make meaning out of things, when we look at somebody, we try and gather information about what can I learn about this person. And I think we've learned the appropriate ways and the things that we can do when we gather information about somebody, because it is one of the ways that we learn about people is observing,
Yes.
right? And so how can we do that in a healthy way?
Yes.
And so I think we're learning better, and I think it's progressed a lot faster because of the access that we have to information
Agreed.
now.
I love that. It's like recognizing our tools that we have at our fingertips and using them appropriately.
Yeah.
You know, using them to better ourselves, to make our lives more helpful and healthy, and get us into a place where we can function like better than before. Like one step a little better than before. I love that. Okay, so music. There's also smartphones, which kind of plays into, I mean, definitely social media, but I think that it's also like the pictures that are being sent or the text messages that are coming in could really quite trigger us as well. And then don't forget, the most important one is our society, our community, our family, our friends. You know, we hear those comments that people make about themselves, and then we internalize those and make agreements with those within ourselves as well. And so being just really careful on those is good.
Because we compare.
We
Yeah,
do. We compare it.
And out of, I don't think it's out of spite or out of judgment towards that person, but checking, are we okay? Are we okay? Are we okay? And so it's not out of malice a lot of times, but it's out of reassurance for ourselves. But then there's that self-doubt and that, I don't know, that lack of compassion that we have for ourselves that can, I don't know.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
beautiful.
Yes, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love the part of like the 3 concepts of self-esteem, and we're going to definitely go over these in the future, but one of them is celebrating our successes, and not just ours, but other people's, right? And so this is one of those things that I think I have to be really mindful of, and I'm working on, is like celebrating those things that my friends are doing that is really awesome. Instead of making myself feel bad or get down on myself because I'm not doing them and I wish it was me that was doing them. And so a constant state of celebration, that should be easy for me. I love events. Celebration is my mojo, right?
Yeah, for real.
So I do really well at this. But there are other things like number 2, which is recognizing you're human and you make mistakes, and so do other people, right? And that is a huge thing, is that when people make those mistakes and say those comments, or, you know, maybe even make some sort of a reflection outward out of their voice, and then the way that we interpret it, we don't have to interpret it that way. We don't have to take it on and make an agreement with it. We can let those things go. We can recognize they're human, they make a mistake. We don't know how they intended for that comment to be perceived by us. You know, it might have been just a comment for them. And so recognizing, assuming the best, never the worst. And then the third concept of self-esteem that is super important that we need to recognize is our value. How we add value to the world and the community around us. What are those things that we're doing that increases our self-esteem and our excitement for life, as well as those things that are kind of getting us into some spots where we need to pay some extra attention to. And so recognize the value that we put in the world around us, into our home life, into our communities, into work, into our children's lives or our friends' lives. And if we can recognize that value, then it just gets rid of all sorts of suicidal ideations. It helps us with anxiety. It keeps on appropriate limitations for expectations and perfectionism, and allows us to just be present sometimes, which is such a beautiful thing. So it gives a couple of things on here, strategies for safe social media use. And I think we've talked a lot about these. And so one of them that I thought was really interesting that I'm adding into my life, and I was like, yes, I'm doing that, is when I'm hovering over social media, to make sure that I don't hover over something that potentially could be hurtful or put me in a place where I feel like shamed, or that I need to change my body. And so hovering over good things, mine tends to be like wells right now. Like I love hovering over wells. When I'm on social media, I'm like, oh, stop. There's like some cool like sea creature. Like I started adding in more like ocean things into mine because that brings happiness and joy to me. And I never feel bad because those things are way bigger than me.
Yeah.
But exactly. So that's the funny thing.
So you gotta be careful with the whales then.
You gotta be careful with the whales.
Make sure that, you're checking in on your inner dialogue.
That's right. By the way, we are all not perfect about this or this concept. Like we're here throwing out information, hoping that there's some sort of receptor inside you that says, I want to learn more. I want to be educated more. I want to do this.
Yeah.
This is something that is going to be super helpful for me. And so I think that is exactly what we have to do and really trigger into that. And so let's say that we have some body image issues. Let's say that we're recognizing that some of our thought concepts aren't necessarily helpful. Let's say that we're constantly in a state of diet, or we're constantly looking at ourselves in a negative aspect, or other people. We're making comments inside our brain, oh, stupid you, don't eat that. Look at how fat you are. Why can't everyone just leave me alone and stop talking about this to me? Like, if we have these negative concepts, I think that these are some actions that we should take. So let's talk about some actions. Action plan, go. Yes, this is my favorite part, of course, of being a therapist, right?
I'm glad we have it, because listeners come for that sometimes. They just want to know, what do I do about it, Okay, so you're telling me the problem, what do I do about it?
Yeah, and so 40 minutes later, here you go. We suckered you in this
or
far.
You skipped, and now you're here.
Good job. Way to do that. I do this every time. Okay, so avoid making physical external appearances a big issue. It really isn't that easy.
It's hard. That's so hard.
It's not easy.
Especially with other people, because you're still going to have that influence. Like, my nutritionist taught me not to really say much as far as compliments go to other people's bodies or their image.
Oh, I love that.
Which is hard sometimes, because you want to say, and sometimes I will. I'll be like, I love your shirt, right?
Yes.
But we can't really say, oh, you look good. Like, what have you been doing lately?
Have you lost weight?
Yeah, have you lost weight? Because it can be very triggering. It can go back to that. It can put us back in that dialogue and back into those behaviors that aren't helpful. So this is hard, because it's not just about influences on us, but it's also about how we influence others too.
Yes.
And we want to do our part. So.
I love that, for sure. Focus on your positive qualities. That is a big one. What are the things, maybe let's not necessarily keep in our everyday ritual those things that we don't like about ourselves. But maybe let's add in some aspects of really learning those things that we do love ourselves. Okay, so let's do it. What do you love about yourself, Maddy?
I'm cheerful, usually.
Ooh, okay. Can we go a step harder and say, what do you love about your body?
I love that it keeps me going in yoga.
Ooh,
I have been doing yoga, and the more I do it, the more my body is stronger.
Yes.
And that's what I try to focus on.
I love
those things of my body is stronger. My body is helping me do this. Yes. Rather than, oh, I like my butt or whatever. Yes. Even though I like my butt. That is a nice quality I have.
Yes. Yes. I like my funny personality. I think it's great. It's too bad if you didn't see it today. You'll have to rewind and look at it again. And you can laugh at all the funny things.
You're welcome.
And as far as my body goes, my hair right now, it is super really crazy today.
But
I have never had long hair. I grew up with a beautician who was like, let's try this new haircut. Snippity snip. And so, Mom, sorry if you're watching this. But you cut my hair a lot. And so she even came over yesterday and was like, I need to cut your hair, Mom. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Callie, what do you think?
Mine kind of goes along with Maddy's, where I really appreciate the ability that I have to go and do things that I love to do.
Yeah.
I love being outside. I love mountain biking. I love hiking. And I love taking my kids with me.
Yeah.
And so having the ability to do that, I don't know. I love the accomplishment of when I get to the top.
That is beautiful.
I don't know. It just feels a really cool achievement that I'm able to do something. And so looking at it that way.
I love that. Let's add in, for just 2 seconds here, your thing. You viewers and listeners at home, come up, say it, do it. You know it's hard. It's killing you. But you got this. Say something nice about yourself. And while you're doing that, I'm going to add in a couple more things here. Set healthy goals. It's really important to make manageable, healthy goals, not those goals that were I'm going to lose this many pounds, but instead actual goals that produce benefit, that get you excited, get you motivated, and make you stay happy in doing what you're doing. Find the trick It's all about finding the trick. You know, if I love to walk, but I hate running, I'm not going to sit and tell myself that I need to run.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I love to walk.
movement that you like.
Yes. In fact, I'm just going to dance crazy in the family room with my children for 10 minutes.
For real, though.
That is totally fair.
Yes.
Make sure that we are not dieting. Dieting, if we have that word on it, it automatically sends a trigger to our brain. And I swear to you, because of that trigger to our brain, it automatically causes us to hold on to every piece of fat we have. It's like, the word was here, diet, hold on to it. So rude.
Well, and there's even like research on it of like that yo-yo effect. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but just like restricting and binging is so common, right? Like not eating certain things or not eating a certain amount, and then ending up feeling like you need the nutrients because your body really is like, hey, I'm hungry, or hey, I need something. Or maybe it's emotional based, like you're dealing with stress, and so we eat this big thing, you know, we binge. And there's that yo-yo effect. And actually, it does show research on holding on to fat because of just how the body's like, I'm starving. I need to hold on to this stuff. And to get more information about that, you might need to see someone who's a professional in that regard, because I've only gone through my own thing, so.
Right. All of us need to seek out our own professionals on this, but definitely, and we are professionals, but even in our professional realm, there are limitations that we have as well. And so this is only, again, I cannot stress enough that we are not professionals in regards to body image or any of that. So many other people have done so much more research, but we want to put it out there for people who might be just struggling a little bit, for you to get some excitement, to gain more information. And these are just a few tips and tricks. Talk about your feelings. Isn't that interesting that is actually one of the things, is to talk about our feelings and how to love your own body. Allow yourself, create some space to allow yourself to love your own body. I think sometimes that can be really difficult because it's like, no, not until we hit this thing over here. And that's not true. And we don't have to do that. So recognizing that, and then recognize the symptoms that may be about something else. And this is where you come and see us, right?
Yes.
This is that part of, or even going to a nutritionist. Yeah. Or even in correspondence together, I work with a lot of people who have, are working with a nutritionist, and I'm helping them with their trauma from their past of eating chips on the blanket in a park, and their mother telling them, it wasn't my mother, but someone telling them, like, hey, are you gonna eat that whole bag? Yeah. I wanted to eat that whole bag. I was planning on eating that whole bag. I was hungry.
It stopped you.
Yes. Have you ever had cheddar ruffles? Like, those things are good. Yes. But knowing my weakness, stay away from cheddar ruffles. I will eat that whole bag.
That's a good point, though. That makes me think of something. So when we're hungry, sometimes we'll go to those things, right? We'll go to chips and stuff, and that's totally fine. But they try to recommend that you add in stuff to help you with actual nutrients. Like, I saw this one girl, and she's anti-diet, and she's hungry, and she's getting a snack, and she's like, I really want chips, but I'm also going to add some other things to give me that protein. Like, I'm going to add some string cheese, and I'm going to add some fruit too. And so really just, it's funny because like the more we learn about diet, the more we learn that we actually need to be adding food rather than subtracting food.
Isn't that fascinating? Mind blown. Information there. Wow, what? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Put that on your scale of learning new things today.
Yes.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
Talk to a doctor. Be careful with doctors. Nutritionists might be a better way to go. But definitely there are doctors out there who are educated on this and have taken classes and can help with this as well. And then also recognize what it does to us. If you can recognize that it is being hurtful to you, then we can call out the lies that it's basically like infiltrating into our lives. And so call out the lies. You know those lies. You know they're not real. You know they're not true. Call those babies out. And then recognizing, sometimes I like to work with some of my clients in my office. It's like internal family systems, which is like that whole recognize there's this part inside you. Like there is a Brandie inside you that loves parties, right? And then there's my core self. And if I can separate the two, sometimes I don't feel like I'm going at battle with myself. I'm just going to battle against her, which is that event planner inside me that's like, it's party time. Get your groove on. Eat that big, that big meal and eat whatever you want. And so then it's taking time to be like, actually, Brandie, I can have a party, an event, and enjoy company, but still gather those things. Or maybe I want to eat that thing, but do I have to eat the whole thing to feel like I'm really at the party? And so creating some better, healthy, what is it called? Like directions and like rules around what you're doing so that you can feel good about yourself. Again, it's not bad to restrict or to put yourself in a place where you can like redefine and to be aware. It only becomes bad when we are hurting ourselves in the process of it and creating trauma that causes us and our bodies to freak out in the process of doing it. So, all right, there are some references. We have some references of some books that we would love to share with you. Some of them we've read. Some of them, they just look like really great ones that we want to read. I think all of these ones we've read. Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole, and Nourish by Heidi Schauster, and More Than a Body, Your Body is an Instrument, Not an Ornament by Lexi and Lindsay Kite. And so those are some ones that are some great references if you don't want to do the whole dieting thing, but like loving your body in the process of like being self-aware, teaching your body healthy boundaries around just that body image. Those are some books to help you find. So anyway, we're so grateful that you guys showed up, came, watched this, and are part of being here with us on this really hard one of body image. It was rough. I'll be honest. There's parts inside of me that it's like, what? And so if you're feeling those at home, understand that that's normal too. We're in a process. Be nice and kind to yourself. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.